sitting down. Thank you all for coming to our first Lunch and Learn of our Power Skills Professional Development Series. If you don't know who I am, shame on you. My name is Brian Good. I'm the talent manager here at Research Park. It's my role, well, frankly, I wear a lot of hats, but essentially it's my role to help connect you to the corporate sites, to our startups, and then to help put on all of this programming that we do during the summer. Before I introduce our subject matter expert and host today, I wanted to run through a few brief announcements involving upcoming events. If any of these get you here, please pop over to our website. We have a lovely calendar that I think many of you found and register at. And just as a matter of advice, register like, I don't know, the week before. Or like a couple of days before. And maybe less on the day of if you can avoid it, so that we can help always make sure we have plenty of food for all of you. First up, this Friday is our team headshot day. So we encourage that if you want to get a company headshot or do a headshot with all of your interns, to come out. We'll have a professional photographer and we'll either take photos here outside or inside if the weather does not cooperate. Next week, on Friday, June 12th, we'll have our annual intern networking social. So this event is often one of our most well attended. It's one of the best chances to get to meet interns from all across the park, all of the different companies. And we'll have a photographer there to take individual intern headshots. So repeat after me. Team headshots this week. Next week, individual intern headshots. No one will remember that, but at least I'll have tried. If any of you like softball, and many of you do, because I recognize many of you for being there yesterday, we do still have individual registrations open. We encourage, if you didn't get a chance to play, we'd love to come have you, and we can throw you on a team. If you're somebody who prefers your sports more inside, table tennis registration is already open. This is one of our most popular events of the summer. It goes fast. We only have a limited number of slots left. I highly recommend you get on that train and get signed up. Those dates are June 17th, but registration will close before that once we get full. Lastly, don't forget, every Tuesday, except for July 1st, we will have another speaker for our Power Skills series. This is one of our, again, most popular series that we do over the summer. Each week will be a different topic. We have some really great topics coming up. Next week is business communication, which, yes, is distinctly different from business etiquette. It's much more focused on how to provide formalized communications, how to work in a corporate environment, when to use Teams versus send an email, and really how to just best express yourself in a professional setting. We highly recommend you all come back and join us for that as well, and that you register when? Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and start us into this as we have our last few folks trickling in and sitting down. Thank you all for coming to our first Lunch and Learn of our Power Skills Professional Development Series. If you don't know who I am, shame on you. My name is Brian Good. I'm the talent manager here at Research Park. It's my role, well, frankly, I wear a lot of hats, but essentially it's my role to help connect you to the corporate sites, to our startups, and then to help put on all of this programming that we do during the summer. Before I introduce our subject matter expert and host today, I wanted to run through a few brief announcements involving upcoming events. If any of these get you here, please pop over to our website. We have a lovely calendar that I think many of you found and register at. And just as a matter of advice, register like, I don't know, the week before. Or like a couple of days before. And maybe less on the day of if you can avoid it, so that we can help always make sure we have plenty of food for all of you. First up, this Friday is our team headshot day. So we encourage that if you want to get a company headshot or do a headshot with all of your interns, to come out. We'll have a professional photographer and we'll either take photos here outside or inside if the weather does not cooperate. Next week, on Friday, June 12th, we'll have our annual intern networking social. So this event is often one of our most well attended. It's one of the best chances to get to meet interns from all across the park, all of the different companies. And we'll have a photographer there to take individual intern headshots. So repeat after me. Team headshots this week. Next week, individual intern headshots. No one will remember that, but at least I'll have tried. If any of you like softball, and many of you do, because I recognize many of you for being there yesterday, we do still have individual registrations open. We encourage, if you didn't get a chance to play, we'd love to come have you, and we can throw you on a team. If you're somebody who prefers your sports more inside, table tennis registration is already open. This is one of our most popular events of the summer. It goes fast. We only have a limited number of slots left. I highly recommend you get on that train and get signed up. Those dates are June 17th, but registration will close before that once we get full. Lastly, don't forget, every Tuesday, except for July 1st, we will have another speaker for our Power Skills series. This is one of our, again, most popular series that we do over the summer. Each week will be a different topic. We have some really great topics coming up. Next week is business communication, which, yes, is distinctly different from business etiquette. It's much more focused on how to provide formalized communications, how to work in a corporate environment, when to use Teams versus send an email, and really how to just best express yourself in a professional setting. We highly recommend you all come back and join us for that as well, and that you register when? Or before that. We don't have to wait till the night before, but good job, we almost got there. Anyway, thank you all for attending, and allow me to introduce one of my favorite speakers, Patricia Simpson. She is an, oh, there we go, yeah, come on, look at that, guys. We almost have an interactive audience, this is going to be great. She is an owner consultant of game-changing etiquette and director of academic advising and career services for the School of Chemical Science at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. You may have heard of it. She has worked in higher education for over 30 years. She's been sharing etiquette tips with corporations, universities, and civic groups for nearly 25. She has developed and facilitated webinars for the American Chemical Society, American Institute of Chemical Engineers, and the Lorman Education Services, and made presentations at Midwest and Southern Associations of Colleges and Employers, NASPA, and the ACPA conferences. Her clients include Dow, UC Bank, the Champaign County and Shoals Chambers of Commerce, numerous universities, and many more. She is a certified etiquette consultant through the Etiquette Institute, and Patricia believes that using proper etiquette can change the game for you. So please join me in welcoming Patricia.
So I think a lot of times when we think about etiquette, we hear, this cotillion thing with people with long white gloves, and that just doesn't really seem attainable or even relevant in what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. The truth is, though, etiquette is really just about treating other people with respect. So who wants to be treated with respect? Yeah, of course. Those of you who didn't raise your hands probably just weren't quite listening yet. So I think all of us want to be treated with respect, right? It's something that we desire, and ultimately I believe that we all want to treat other people with respect too. We're not really looking to go around and be rude to other people. Let your dog do its thing in somebody else's front yard without picking up. Whatever. We really want to care for one another, and we want that care back too. And that's really what etiquette does. Etiquette just gives us the framework to know how to do that. So yes, there are a lot of rules, and we'll talk about those today, many of them, but ultimately, at its core, etiquette's about respect. It's not about the rules. The rules just tell us how to respect one another. So as we kind of jump in today, that's where we're headed. So today's agenda, I want to talk a little bit about what a professional is. I think a lot of times I work with students all the time, and I think a lot of times students don't see themselves as professionals. But we are, and you are even now, whether you are in a full-time permanent job or an internship, or even if you're not even doing that, you're just a student, you're still a professional. And we'll talk about why that is. I also, want to talk a little bit about some general principles about etiquette and professionalism. And of course I want to talk about first impressions, because how you carry yourself, how you interact with people, a lot of that's going to go back to that first impression that you made. Part of first impressions has to do with attire. Like it or not, how you dress is sending a message. And hopefully, most of the time we don't intentionally say like, okay, I'm going to think about what message I'm going to send by what clothes I'm going to put on. We put on clothes that we feel comfortable in. But there is a piece of you're thinking about a message that you're sending out based on how you're dressing. I think Brian was saying earlier he wants to be the professional but fun vibe at the same time. So, that's something that you can intentionally think through when you're putting on your clothes. Communication is another piece, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, even though you're going to hear more about professional communication, because everything we do has to deal with communication, how you interact with one another, and how you are successful or not in some cases. Even those jobs where you are working by yourself on a project with a computer, you don't really work with other people, there are still pieces where you have to be a good team player, where you have to communicate, where you have to share your results, or go to somebody to get help, whatever the case might be. So communication is super vital. So from greetings, how you first interact with somebody, all the way through talking on the phone, sending email, and more. There's a few things we're going to talk about today. I also want to touch on social media. I know many of you are on social media. I think it's a good thing to do. I think it's important to be there, but it's also still important to remember that you are going to be judged by what your social media looks like. And so all of this pulls together to how do you stand out positively. Several years ago, we actually had a company who came up to me and said, it's really important that you come talk to my interns because I really want to take my intern to the headquarters. But I'm so embarrassed about the way my intern eats, and I know that there will be a business meal that is going to hurt them, and so I'm not even going to do it because I think that will look bad on me and also look bad on the intern. So even something as basic about that, like you think, well, what does how I eat have to do with the impression that I'm going to give to people? But all of that is a piece of how you're standing out positively, or in this case, I should say negatively. So we'll talk about all that today. There's this quote by Mark Twain that I really like. It says that etiquette requires us to admire the human race. The reason I like that is because it does go back to that core of etiquette being about respect. If you're going to use the rules, it's typically because you care about the people that you're interacting with. You admire, appreciate, like the human race. All right, so Callista Gold is a colleague of mine. She was running the Culture and Manners Institute for many years, and she kind of talked about what a professional is. And that's where I want to start, because I think, again, a lot of us don't necessarily think about ourselves as professional. So professionalism has two parts. One of those is specific to your field. So that's like using the skills that you're using on the job, using the knowledge, things that are related to a specific field. Part of that is that growth mentality of keeping your skills current. And skills is a lot of things. Skills might be the ability to run a CMS, or skills might be the ability to interact and network. So sometimes they're technical skills, sometimes they're soft skills. All of that sort of is lumped under that skills thing there. But being open to learning, having a growth mindset, constantly kind of challenging yourself, that's really what being a professional is. And that's one of the reasons that I say if you're a student, you're a professional, because obviously you're in school to learn. So the other part is professionalism is not just relevant to your specific profession, but it's relevant to everybody. So this is where a lot of the etiquette stuff really falls into, but it's things like being attentive, making sure that you're not being rude to somebody, that you're caring for the people, that you're being conscientious and careful about your interactions. So professionalism at work, there are a few sort of framework things that I think are important. Number one thing is whatever you're doing, especially this summer, unless you have explicit permission from your site manager, don't use any of your resources or things for your personal use. I would say that can go so far even as to not spending time doing personal things. Not spending, of course we say, okay, we're not going to steal the pens and take the pens home or something like that, but I think it goes a lot further than that. So anything that you're using for your personal use, unless you have permission from your supervisor or site manager, oh gosh, I'm going to sneak away and spend some time doing social media, but you're still at work, that's essentially inappropriate, unethical, or even in some cases somebody would say as much as stealing. So be sure that when you're at work, you're at work. Minimizing your cell phone usage when you are at work or at any time you're with other people, I think is important. We're so tied. I mean, oh my gosh, even my phone is sitting down here and I'm like, oh, I hope nothing, comes up while I'm doing the session. We're so tied to our untethered phones. But unfortunately, when we're in real life with other people, if you're focused on your phone, more so than focused on the other people that you're with, that sends a really bad impression to those people. In fact, I have, as you heard from Brian, my full-time job, I do career services on campus. And I've had a student lose out on a job offer for the one reason that he was on his phone during the dinner of an interview. So here's what happened. So the recruiter took this candidates out to dinner, and they said, hey, this is the time, it's really casual, this is all about you, ask whatever questions you want, we want it to be really informal. And so my student took that to say, oh, informal means casual. It means I don't have to pay attention, I don't have to stay engaged. I can get on my phone and see what's going on back home. But what the recruiter saw that as was, listen, candidate has this great time to ask questions. They're more interested in what's on the phone than asking questions of me. That means they're not interested. And because the candidate wasn't interested, the recruiter didn't make him an offer. Now he was a PhD student, he had done all the things that you have to do. He had checked all the boxes, he looked like an awesome candidate. And so the only reason I found out about this story was because I asked the recruiter, what on earth happened? Like, I thought this was a perfect fit for you guys. And he told me, like, hey, the student wasn't interested. I was like, well, what do you mean wasn't interested? I thought he was when the conversations I had from him. But that interaction with his cell phone told the recruiter that message. And so be very cautious about that when you're with other people, and definitely when you're at work. Some of you will work in situations where you have a lot of safety rules. I work with a lot of chemists and chemical engineers, and so there are safety rules around labs. Some of you have more or less of those, but definitely corporate America cares about safety a lot. There are many times I've been at a headquarters somewhere, and I'll be walking down the stairs, and they're like, no, you have to like hold the railing when you go down. It's a safety thing. And part of me is like, I'm not going to fall down these stairs. Like, I can just walk down. But because those are the rules of that organization, I need to owe them that respect. All right, first impressions matter. So believe it or not, companies are spending lots and lots of money on their brand. They've got a whole team that's just coming up with ideas and how do you look on your website, what color should you be. But if you come across with a customer or a client negatively, it doesn't matter how much that company has spent on branding or marketing or training, it's going to completely derail the entire image. So having good first impressions that you are presenting as an employee of a company also helps that company present a good first impression. Now I'm going to talk today, I said, about communication and a few other things. And know that business etiquette is a little bit different than like social etiquette. So there are going to be some rules that I'm going to talk about that doesn't necessarily mean they have to go into your social interactions as well. So today specifically is about business. So knowledge is important. Your skills are important. If you want to be successful in a job, you have to be able to do the basics. But beyond that, or in addition to that, other things are important too. So in career services, we talk a lot about those soft skills, things like teamwork and networking and communication. Those are all super important if you really want to be a success initiative as well. So ultimately, it's not about the list of rules like I said at the beginning. It's about respect. If you make a negative first impression, it can be kind of hard to overcome, but not impossible. So having consistent, sort of consistency, I guess, but interactions with people is going to be the fastest way to overcome that negative first impression if you run into that. So good manners sometimes means putting up with other people's bad manners. So if you have, again, that person who, like I said at the beginning, lets their dog go to the bathroom in your front yard and then just walks away, and you come out, how dare you, come after, that's not going to create a good positive impression, right? But if you can have an honest conversation with that person and then kind of let it go, that actually is part of what etiquette is about. So a lot of times people will say, hey, I know after hearing you talk that my best friend is doing something really wrong that they're not supposed to do. Can I correct them? Can I tell them how to do it right? Technically, no. Technically, etiquette means you take the high road no matter what. And so even if your best friend is doing something that you know to be wrong, you're not supposed to correct them. Now there are a few exceptions. Your parents can correct you. Your teachers can correct you, a supervisor can correct you. So if you have that power differential with somebody, then it's okay. It's because it's actually more of an education than a correction in that case. And that's important. So I would say, if you've got a friend who's maybe not the most respectful or whatever, let it go, take the high road. Otherwise, if you are, because many of you will be at some point in a supervisory role, then by all means, make sure your people are doing the things they're supposed to do. All right, one of those things is how you dress. You don't want your attire to sort of send a message that you don't want to be sending. So dressing professionally at work definitely demonstrates respect. You see all the time on Reddit or any kind of chat rooms like, hey, I can't believe I wore this to work. This seems perfectly acceptable to me. Why not? And then there's people who say, oh yeah, you're fine. And other people who say, no, you're not fine. So ultimately, I would say the moral of that story is check with your supervisor about what's appropriate for your particular place of work. And you might work somewhere this year and a certain outfit may be totally fine, whereas next year your supervisor is going to say it's a different company, a different person. No, that's not appropriate attire for work. So just make sure you're following what that particular organization's guidelines are. Generally, I would say minimizing bare skin at work is a good thing to do, but also paying attention to those details. And details mean, if you're going to a career fair and you're wearing a black suit, to wear darker colored socks. But details mean other things too. So details can also mean smells. So good smells or bad smells can be distracting smells. So of course we know the bad smells and we don't want to be around those. But if you go to Bath and Body Works and buy one of the really scenty lotions, but the person who's got a cubicle next to you is really sensitive to scents or something like that, then now you're showing disrespect to that person. My office, we just moved into a space. We went from 3 of us to 6 of us. And believe it or not, just adding 3 extra people adds a lot of extra different smells that we didn't have before. And one of my staff members has a really weak stomach. And so anytime somebody cooks food or comes in and sprays a bunch of aerosols or things that's bothering her, and she has to even get up and leave the office. So that can be harmful to her. So she finally came and said, hey guys, here's the deal. I know it's just me, but this is my challenge, and can y'all help me out? And we all care about her, and so we are working to help her out a little bit in that area. So be aware that sometimes bad smells and good smells can be bad smells. And then finally, business casual clothes typically are not quite as casual as you think. I would say especially if you have a job interview, talk to your career services office, talk to a recruiter or something like that before you actually come in, or even if they say, hey, you can dress casually, find out what that means. Does that mean business casual, or does that mean, athletic casual? All right, let's talk about greetings a little bit. I would say mastering introducing yourself is actually one of the best things that you can do to be more successful at a networking event. How many of you love walking into a group of, let's say, 200 strangers? Raise your hands. Okay, that's typically the case, right? A room this size, we usually only have 1 or 2 people. So the nice thing is very few people are comfortable with that. So if you say, I'm not going to go to this networking event because I'm not comfortable, remember this, that only you are comfortable in that situation. So most people there feel the same way you do. But if you go and you learn how to master that interaction, you're actually going to be able to help move your career ahead. You never know who you're going to meet at an event, have a conversation with that might lead to something else. Sometimes it's, hey, I've now got a tutor for such and such class, or sometimes it's, I've got a teammate who I can work on this project with, or I was stalled on this idea and now I've got somebody I can talk to. But sometimes it's even bigger than that. I've had students go to networking events where they meet somebody and they almost get offered a job on the spot. So sometimes those interactions can be a lot more fruitful than you think they're going to be. So number 1 thing I'm going to say in your homework for today is to practice your handshake. Find somebody that you can shake hands with and ask them to give you, don't set them up in advance unless they're already here, but after you've shaken hands, say, how was that? Do I need to work on that handshake? Because how you present yourself with your handshake is going to say a lot about you. We've all had them, right? The really limp-ish that kind of makes you shudder when you shake hands with that person. Or the politician who pulls out a second hand and tries to do a 2-handed handshake. Any of those are going to create an impression that's not the one that you want to create, not the one of, I'm a positive, confident professional. So making sure that you know how to shake hands and that you have feedback, because sometimes we don't know, on your handshake is important. Now, a lot of times people ask me, okay, for whatever reason I can't shake hands or I don't want to shake hands. Have your alternative practice just the way you practice your handshake, whatever that alternative looks like. Usually in business, sometimes you can do a fist bump or an elbow bump, but I would say usually in business settings, especially if you're not sure how conservative a culture that is, do something more like this. So you put your hand on your heart, do a slight little bow, not a major bow, but just a slight little bow kind of with your upper body and your head, and smile, make eye contact. The reason I say put your hand up here is that they can physically see that you're not going to be extending your hand. You're putting it up here. And then definitely say something like, it's very nice to meet you. Now, different cultures have different rules around handshaking, so I'm specifically talking about US-based business, but having a good, positive, powerful handshake is really important. Now, sometimes people don't read the rules or don't read your kind of implied, and they're going to still follow you around because they found a friend. And then in that case, you may have to pull out, I really need to go to the bathroom, and hopefully they don't follow you into the bathroom. But generally putting it back to them, saying, I've really enjoyed talking with you, but I'm sure there are other people that you want to interact with, so we can follow up online or something like that. It's a great closing. If you forget somebody's name, it's okay. We all do that once or twice in our lives. So ask again. Now you kind of want to ask 5 or 6 times, but if you need to ask a couple of times, I think most of us would rather have somebody call us by the right name than no name or the wrong name. So ask. And then being a good listener, like I said earlier, paying attention to what other people are saying is really key to learning how to mingle and to network well. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. If you do have a place where you're wearing name tags, I'm trying to see who's got name tags on here today, just a couple people. Make sure you put them on your right side, so good job. Your right side is the best because as you're extending your hand to shake hands with somebody, that allows them to look right up your arm to your name tag. So I know some of you have lanyards, that's obviously fine, but if you're actually putting on a name tag, you want to put it on your right side. So anybody in here left-handed? No lefties in here? Oh, one. Okay. Well, it's a lot easier for you to put on a name tag. Finally, something lefties get to do easier than, and my husband is a lefty and he complains about the world being made for right-handed people, but putting on a name tag as a lefty is a lot easier. All right, handshakes, I talked about a little bit, some examples. These are all bad ones, right? So bone crushers, or sticking your fingers out, or trying to use the 2 hands, fingertips, like all of those are not to do handshakes. This is a good solid handshake. The webs of the thumbs are meeting, so this part right in here, and you're gonna have maybe 2 or 3 pumps and then let it go. But if that's not your handshake, practice it. Firm it up, loosen it up, whatever you need to do. All right, telephone a little bit. How many of you have a main office line at your company that you could potentially answer? Nobody. Okay, awesome. Well, sometimes you will be in companies where you have that. No matter what, if a call is coming into you at work, treat the call as important. If you do get a voicemail or a message that you're supposed to return, etiquette rules say you're supposed to do that within 1 business day. If you are out of the office for an extended period of time, make sure that your answering machine reflects that. If you are answering an office, like a general phone, not necessarily a reception, but if it could ring anywhere, make sure not just to say your name, but also to include the organization name, just to make sure people who are calling have the right. And then finally, don't assume caller ID is correct. So even if you're using Teams or something like that to make calls, and a call comes through and it says it's from Patricia Simpson, don't just answer the phone and say, hey Patricia, because I might have lent my phone to somebody else. So always answer sort of more formally when you're answering at work. If you are using speakerphone for any reason, even if it's just because your headphones are broken, make sure that you let the person who you are talking to know so that they don't say something incriminating out loud that other people can hear. So just say, hey, my headphones aren't working, I'm going to have to put you on speaker, so that way other people might hear. It's also a good idea to say, I'm alone, or there are 5 people here, or something like that, just so they have some idea. If somebody calls you at work, you should always be the last one to hang up. So if you're at work, let the client or let the customer, whomever has called you, hang up first. If you are making phone calls for work, You always want to introduce yourself, no matter what. If you have somebody that answers that is not the person you speak to, so it's like a secretary or administrative assistant person who's at the front desk, or some type of a gatekeeper that's sort of screening calls, you still want to make sure, like you say, hey, this is Patricia Simpson, well, say your name, but hey, this is Patricia Simpson, I'm calling for this purpose to talk to so-and-so. Here's why. We spend a lot of time playing phone tag in the business world, and so if you're giving that information up front, they might say, oh, I've actually got information that you need, instead of just saying, oh, he's not here right now, could you call back? So it's a good idea to kind of start with, here's who you are, here's who you're calling for, and here's why you're calling. Also, if you are on the phone at work and someone walks into your office, the person that you're on the phone with at work, unless it's a personal call, always has priority. So even if somebody walks in, let them know you'll be just a minute and make sure that you give priority to the person on the phone. If you have to leave a message, always leave a full message. I mean, you don't want to talk on and on and on, but at least say, this is Patricia Simpson, first and last name. They might know multiple Patricias, why you're calling, when you're available, and so forth. So that's a good way. The other thing I would recommend doing is following up with the old school email, which I'll talk about in a minute. All right, cell phone usage. I talked at the beginning, said, we use cell phones a lot. If you're in a public place, or especially if you're at work, make sure that you keep your voice down, your volume down, and that kind of thing. If it's okay for you to take personal phone calls at work, great. But if you're in an open working environment or a cubicle environment, everybody doesn't want to hear your La Cucaracha ringtone or whatever ringtone you have set. All right, so I mentioned that I would talk about email. Number one thing of email is you have to use it. Unfortunately, I know it's very old school. I know a lot of students don't like to use email, but a lot of old people like me, business professionals, still use email to do a lot of work. And so it's important, whether you're a student, whether you're an intern, whatever, to check your email and to answer it. So if you get a message and they're asking for some kind of a response, if you don't have the information at this point, you can just say, I got your email, I'll have to get back to you within the next couple of days with that information. The general rule on business emails is 2 days, so you're supposed to respond within 2 business days. Also, I would say remember that every email that you send, even though you should use it, just be cautious in using it because it could be forwarded. I've had that happen. One of my closest friends was invited to, I guess it was a baby shower that was work related. I was on the chain as well, and she thought she had responded to me, and she went, why would I buy this person a present? I don't like this person, I can't stand, why would I spend money? Well, she didn't send it to me. She actually accidentally sent it to the person who had originally sent out the email. So just be cautious about what you put in writing. Utilize spell check. Don't just rely on spell check though. And I would say for anything business professional, you want to use as much as you can, proper grammar, proper spelling, all those kinds of things. Try not to be too casual. We've gotten very casual in our conversation, but usually at work, you kind of want to elevate it a little bit. So it's one thing to send a casual email with a friend, a little bit different, and you'll hear more about this from Leanne Cunningham. And then also knowing which genre you should be using. So if you're sending, hey, are you available? I just have a quick question. That doesn't necessarily need to be an email. It might be able to be, through your different social media or Teams or whatever channels that you're using. But if it's something that's really long and you're sending me a Teams message that's this long, I'm not going to read all that. So in that case, be sure to send me an email. Again, I'll let Leanne kind of go into this in more detail. If you're sending an email, be sure to always include a subject line and include a greeting. So one of my, I guess he's not site director anymore out here, but one of my friends who was a site director out here said that he used to get even students emailing to him about jobs, and they would just say, hey, in their subject, to address him. And he's like, I don't know you, that's too casual. I'm not just a hey. So you don't have to necessarily say a dear, but at least putting the person's name with a comma or something like that as that introduction. So Dustin, comma, and so forth. If you do include a message, again, most of us are reading our emails on our phone. Don't make them too long. If it starts getting too long, make them into bullets. And then finally, if you're copying somebody, or especially if you're blind copying somebody on your email, do so intentionally and cautiously. Don't just copy in every single person. Also, if you are on a copied email where there's 100 different people and you're responding, but you really only need to respond to the person who sent the email, you can take everybody off the CC list. That's fine. So you CC when it's legitimately necessary. Like, hey, we all need to be in this conversation. You need to know when I'm working, and that's why everybody's all CC'd on the email. Then respond to all people. Otherwise, take people off the CC. Does that make sense? All right, social media, a few things. Of course, follow what your employer says about working and doing social media at work. And stay professional, even if your job is the social media intern. It's a good idea to still sound positive and upbeat. I've had students lose out on jobs for a lot of crazy reasons regarding social media. And there are more and more people who are checking social media as employers before making hires. So I think it's a good idea to be there, but also have a plan. Like, don't just willy-nilly kind of throw out humor and things like that. If you're a super funny person, but somebody who's reading your social media doesn't know you, if they would see your humor without the right intention, just be cautious about using humor. I also had a student on X, I guess, I was gonna say Twitter, but on X who had, she was working for the dining services, and so dining services is a hard job. So she's kind of really complaining a lot on X about, oh, I hate my job sucks. And she had a company who was looking at hiring her, and they saw her Twitter, X profile, and they were like, no, we're not gonna hire her. She's just negative all the time. We don't want that kind of energy in our company. It was a very specific thing directed at a very specific organization, but another company saw that. So sometimes that can be seen in a negative light. On the flip side of that, I had a grad student a few years ago who was on Facebook and had posted how he was looking at consumer products companies and how he was super excited. He had this really great interview with a big name brand company that everybody knew, and it was his dream job, and he was probably going to get it. Well, one of his former lab mates worked for another consumer products company who was recruiting on campus, and they didn't give him an interview. And so when I found out why, she said that's why. It was because he had posted about this other company and how great it was and how he was sure he's going to get a job. And she said, we're really limited in the number of spots that we have available for interviews, so he's got this other job, we're not even going to bother. Well, guess what? He didn't get the job. So, he probably would have liked to have the interview at the other company. So just be cautious what you're putting out there. I think it's good to have a presence, but remember that people are going to be reading whatever it is that you put it on whatever platform, unless you're using Snapchat, which disappears, but just be cautious what you're putting out there. So what are other questions that you can ask of other students? Yeah?
Major or where they're studying?
Absolutely, your major, what you're studying, you bet. What else? Yeah?
Clubs.
Yeah, clubs, hobbies, RSOs, what are you involved in? Those are all great. So now you all have a few opening questions that you can kind of think of that you can ask one another. I would also challenge you when you go to a networking event to have a reason to go, because most of us don't really know what the point is, but give yourself one. So I'm going to meet 3 new people at this event. That's a reason. So now you've got a purpose, you've got something to kind of go for and some structure, which helps a lot. I would also say learning that small talk, having those open-ended questions like I talked about earlier could be really helpful. If you're not, I'm not going to be out the social life of the party butterfly person, that's fine. Be a catalyst to connect other people. So you're talking to somebody, you find out that they're a Bears fan, and you find out somebody else is a Bears fan, maybe get them to connect and watch a Bears game later on in the season, when the season starts. So you're helping to kind of build relationships, be that catalyst, even if you don't want to be the one to talk. Again, don't hide behind your tech. If you have business cards, although most of us do not anymore, but get a business card if you're at a business professional event, or very least, connect on social media, connect on LinkedIn. Anytime, especially LinkedIn is for people who want to connect with other people. So never feel like, oh my gosh, I met the CEO of a company, I can't connect with that person on LinkedIn. It's still fine if you met with them, to ask them, hey, can I follow with you on LinkedIn or connect with you on LinkedIn? I would say that's a great place to be and to connect for business purposes. All right, if somebody's done something nice for you, thank them. So be sure to thank your people who helped put this event on afterwards. If you have a job interview, a thank you should be sent within 24 hours. If you have somebody who does a favor for you, it's kind of more, a little bit longer, it's more like a week. And if somebody actually gives you a gift, you have 2 weeks. But the whole point is, be thankful, be appreciative, and that's so important. And definitely goes a long way. People remember that, absolutely. All right, so what happens if you forget a rule or you do something that you're like, oh shoot, I made a bad first impression? How do you overcome that? Anybody have a good idea? Yeah.
Don't just ignore it.
Yeah, absolutely. What were you gonna add?
Take a deep breath.
Yeah, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, don't just ignore it. Most of the time we can't overcome things that don't go right the first time. We're just human. Everything happens. Everybody's gonna, tip over the carafe of water at the business event at some time or other. Like, it just is gonna happen. So it's not just about what happened, but it's also how you react after. So take a deep breath, stay positive, don't ignore it, but apologize maybe. I would also say don't overdo it though. I had a student who was, so I work right next to Noise 100, if anybody's been in that classroom, but it's huge. There was a professor who had absolutely no cell phones in class policy, and of course the student's phone went off. And so she was like, okay, she shut off really fast and apologized. She went up after class and apologized again. When she got back to her residence hall, sent an apology email. That's probably a little much. Like, apologize, recognize it, maybe say, shut it off, I'm sorry, tell the professor after class I'm sorry, but then let it go after that. Ultimately though, if you make mistakes, as we all will, remember that it's more about the interaction with the people. It's not about the rules. It's not about, I broke a rule, or I didn't follow something the way I was supposed to. So focus on the interaction, focus on staying positive, taking that deep breath, and you'll be all right. So Emily Post is kind of one of those old-timey etiquette gurus. I want to end with this quote. She said that manners are a sensitive awareness of the feelings of others. If you have that awareness, you have good manners, whether you use the right fork or not. So stay positive, interact with other people. All those things are really going to help your career. You never know what interaction, what conversation is going to be that catalyst for you that's going to lead you into a greater, bigger, better thing. So etiquette, yes, is important, but only because it's about treating other people with respect. So I don't know, I know some of you might need to go, but I have some time. If you have questions, I would love to entertain those. Yeah.
So you mentioned that if one of your friends has bad manners, you shouldn't say anything about it.
Right.
But I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like you're kind of, like if you know it and they don't, you're not telling them, you're kind of setting them up for failure. So what do you think about that?
That's a great question. So if you couldn't hear, the question was like, hey, you're not supposed to correct your friends, but like I want to help my friend because they're obviously eating like a pig or chewing with their mouth open or whatever the case might be. It probably does depend a little bit on the relationship. If they have said before to you, like, hey, please correct me if you know something or have kind of opened that door in some other way, then that might be okay. But otherwise, yeah, you really should still kind of take the high road, and hopefully an instructor or a teacher or a boss or something will be the one to kind of guide them a little bit. I mean, you can subtly send them, some etiquette stuff, I guess, possibly, but a link to my website. There you go. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
What's your favorite open-ended question to ask?
I think that's a great question. So what's my favorite open-ended question? That probably was a good one right there. It depends on the situation that I'm in. I like to get more at passions or excitement. So yeah, of course, if I'm talking to a bunch of students, I'll say, what are you majoring in? What are you learning? But I'll probably, instead of just saying, what are you majoring in? Like, what are you excited about what you're learning right now? Would be, because I like to get at that passion piece, because I work with students, so that's my excitement. But so phrasing it something like that. But if I'm working with a bunch of business professionals, I probably wouldn't say that. I probably would phrase it more like, tell me what you're working on that you're excited about. All right, that wins. Good question. I'm sure I have plenty of examples. I'm just not thinking of them right now. Others? Okay, well, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is there. You guys have been a great audience. I'm going to stick around. If anybody had questions they didn't want to ask in front of the group, you can come up and ask me.
And just as a reminder, if you haven't yet, we do have summer internship newsletters so that you know that these events are happening. Please feel free to sign up. There's a QR code at the exit. The Intern Networking Social is next week. A lot of you were asking questions about how to network. Hey, I'll be there and I'm going to be doing a small presentation and then helping you do it. We hope to see you later. Thank you again. Talk to you soon.